Nice hand for Jay Black, ladies and gentlemen. Jay Black.
Hi everyone, I'm Sophia Haber-Brock and welcome back to Sophia's Studio. Today I'm joined by comedian and writer Jay Black. So thank you so much for joining me today. And obviously I met you through Vinny in his podcast show.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
I thought it was a great interview and you were really well spoken and a great storyteller. And obviously you're very funny. And
Oh, thank you.
I was really impressed by your story. I think it's really cool. And my primary audience is students because I'm going to be posting this on my news, the school's news. And I think they would really like to hear your story, especially since you were a high school teacher and then you turned into a successful comedian and that you work on, you write scripts for movies in your own production company and like networks like Hallmark and Lifetime. So yeah, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. And just a question, is this a video podcast or a just an audio podcast?
It's video.
Oh, okay,
Cool.
because I was going to tell you to lie and say how handsome I was. But
Uh,
since it's video, we can't do that. So we'll just let everybody make their own decisions about it.
yeah.
So you never know, because when it's audio, I go like, oh, and he's also got rippling abs, and no one knows. And they go, oh wow, rippling abs, good for him.
Yeah, you can't hide
So
here. How did you get started in comedy? Like, and have you loved it since you were a kid? And how did that stem from?
absolutely. Well, I can't tell the story anymore because the story involves Bill Cosby, and
Yeah.
you're not allowed to talk about that anymore. Listen, awful person. I just got done watching Showtime's We Need to Talk About Bill Cosby. If you get a chance to see it, it's fantastic documentary. But he was the best comedian of all time. There was no one better than Bill Cosby. And he was clean. I mean, not in his personal life. He was a monster in his personal life, but on stage, he was clean. So I remember I was 6 years old and I was watching Bill Cosby as a 6-year-old. And my dad laughing so hard he couldn't breathe. And, my dad was the kind of guy that, didn't show a lot of emotion. So I was like, oh, wow, you can make adults laugh. I want to do that. Not all the other stuff Bill Cosby had done, just that, the laughter part. So that always stuck in my head. And I grew up in the 80s, which was like the big boom time for stand-up comedy. Like we call it the 80s boom. There was millions of TV shows and comedy clubs all devoted to stand-up. So like if you were like a little, and I know it's surprising, I look like I would have been super cool in high school. But when you are, a huge nerd and you're home alone and you've got nothing to do, there was a lot of comedy to absorb. So all through the 80s and 90s, that's all I did was just sort of ingest it. And I wouldn't have done anything about it. I would have it just would have been this thing that I always wanted to do. And I would have said in my head, like, oh, I could be funny like those guys. Then I met a girl, Sophia, she was a substitute teacher at the school that I was teaching at. And I don't know if girls have, like, I don't know how girls work at all. You're all a mystery to me. But when a guy meets a girl, like there's this burst of like, I got to do something, right? Because it's like, it's not like I'm just going to sit there and go like, look at this, you could have this, not going to work. So I needed to do something. And that like 2 weeks after I met her, that was the first time I went on stage. I was, and all of that sort of pent up, energy of wanting to do stand up all sort of came pouring out. And, within 5 years, she was my wife and that was my job. So everything worked out.
Hmm. That's so nice that like love kind of inspired your comedy. You said you loved stand up and comedy and stuff. Why did you choose to become a teacher, like an English teacher?
So I was originally going to be an economics major, which was
Wow.
what my dad was, so the plan was I was going to be a wealthy investment banker. And in one of the first classes that I took, you had to read this book by Michael Lewis called Liar's Poker. And Michael Lewis, he wrote The Big Short. He's a very famous writer about economics. So he wrote this book called Liar's Poker, and it was about how he became an investment banker. And part of the way he did that was he went to Princeton. Now I was at the College of New Jersey, which is sort of Princeton light. It's not, but my daughter's over there. Penny, do you want to come say hi to everybody? Can I just introduce her
Oh
super
yeah, of
quick?
course.
Come on in. I'm getting interviewed. This is a high school girl.
Hi.
Sophia, and I'm doing her podcast. This is Little Penrose.
Hi.
Hi.
All right. You can go watch TV. I'll be done shortly. Okay, love? Yeah. So I'm pretty sure she's mine, like 80%.
Yeah.
So I was reading Liar's Poker, and the first chapter of Liar's Poker was like, yeah, I went to Princeton. I studied art history. You only get one chance to go to college, study something you love. So I shut my book. I stood up and I went down to the advisor and I was like, I want to be an English major because I love reading and writing. And my dad was not happy about this, said, all right, well, you're going to have to get a backup. Like you got to get like a teacher degree. And I was like, yeah, but I just want to write and read. And he was like, what are you going to do? Be vice president of poetry interpretation at IBM? That doesn't exist. So like, go like get a job. So, I became I got the secondary education. And what I found, especially early on, was the initial itch to get up in front of people and do comedy. Like it got scratched by being an English teacher, by getting to go in and perform, Shakespeare to kids. And it also prepared me for New Jersey audiences, because you're a New Jersey teenager in high school. And a lot of people say, why did you leave teaching, Jay? And I always say, how did you treat your English teacher? And then there's a pause and they go, I get it.
And what was it like transitioning to comedy full time from teaching? Was it a scary experience or?
So by the time I was, able to transition full time, like the actual act of doing stand-up wasn't all that scary. But part of the reason why people become teachers is the stability that it offers. Once you get tenure, you could, like, short of setting fire to the school, and even then a big fire, it's kind of hard to lose that job. So again, the big scary thing was like, I'm going to go be a comedian, which again, my dad super thrilled about. Hey, Dad, that education I got where I was going to be an investment banker, but then I became an English teacher. Well, now I'm going to talk about farts for a living. It was like, you could just see like my dad going, what's wrong with you? So that was scary, especially considering after I put in my resignation, within, I don't know, a month, maybe 2 weeks, my wife was pregnant with our first kid, Keen. And that was, you met him, by the way.
Yeah.
That was like so it's been an ongoing stomach ache every year of like, I got to get enough gigs. I got to do enough to go and feed the family. But so far it's been working out. You saw how big he was, it's worked out okay.
So you found success with comedy, and then how did that morph into writing scripts for movies?
So in part, it was, one of the best things about being a comedian is time. You perform, like if I'm in Las Vegas, doing a headlining set in Vegas, I'm working literally 40 minutes a night. And the rest of the time, the 23 hours and 20 minutes, that's my cat. Hello, cat. You're not part of this, cat. I'm allergic to cats. I didn't want the cat, Sophia, but the cat loves me. Get away, you. So you're performing all the time. And you're 40 minutes a night, and then the rest of the time is like just nothing, right? So it's kind of hard, when your wife is home with 3 kids, when she calls you up and says, well, I had to take so-and-so to the doctor, I had to go and work, and then I had to go here. What was your day like? And you go, well, I woke up at 2, and then I went to the pool, and then I went to the buffet, and now I got to talk for 40 minutes. Yeah, like you could just, my wife would oftentimes think of murdering me, and you could sense that there was murder in her eyes. So, I started writing at the same time. My best friend from elementary school had gone out to LA, and he was making some inroads, and he needed a partner. So I had all of this time, and we started talking, and before you know it, I'm writing scripts with him, and they're going out. And it's nice. And I will say this, and this, I know a lot of high school kids are listening. I'm not that talented, but I have 2 things going for me. One, I'm fairly stupidly confident. Like, I mean, like stupidly confident. Like I go, well, why can't I do that? Whereas any rational person would go, you can't do that, Jay. Just don't. But the second thing is I finish, every single person in this world, I guarantee you, your listeners, your viewers, all of them have had an idea for a movie, probably better than the ones that I sold, right? The difference is I got them done and then stupidly took them out to people who had money and said, hey, I want to make these movies. And I did that enough that eventually someone gave me money to make a movie. And it's one of those things where, Woody Allen, another person who is canceled, don't follow him, but he had a good aphorism. And that aphorism was 90% of success is showing up. And it sounds like just a glib quip, like this is, well, I mean, just show up. Being bold and doing the work goes a long way. Everybody thinks there needs to be this like lightning strike of inspired talent. It doesn't need to be that. It just needs to, be worked on like anything else. If you play field hockey, you don't just sit around and hope that you're struck by the field hockey gods and you're going to be really good at field hockey. You practice and you go out and you show up, and that's how you get good.
Like, how did you start working for like networks like Hallmark and Lifetime and stuff like that?
Sure. So I didn't know about this, but if you start paying attention to the production companies, the little logos that pop up before a movie, there's this whole cottage industry of these little production companies. I say little, they're worth a couple of $1 million that like sort of churn out these movies for Lifetime and Hallmark and basically every other cable channel, because, Hallmark, getting through the door at Hallmark is tough, but getting through the door at Mar Vista, who makes movies for Hallmark, is decidedly easier because it's a smaller company. So we had been bouncing around town. Like we had done a movie for Lionsgate that never got made, but we wrote the script. When I say we, I'm not talking in the royal we, my writing partner and I. We had done a couple of movies independently for different financiers, some of which got like onto Amazon and did pretty well. But we took a meeting at Mar Vista and they said, well, we're looking for Valentine's Day movies. Do you have any Valentine's Day movies? And I said, no, and stood up to leave. And my writing partner said, we do. And Sophia, we didn't. We just took a movie that we already wrote and changed its name to Meet My Valentine, which I'm looking at the poster right now. I can't, turn around, but, and they were like, great. We love it. Let's do it. And really, there's nothing Valentine's Day about it, except the main character's name is Valentine. That's all we did. So we took a script that we already wrote. We handed it to him. It did very well. But yeah, so once that movie, Meet My Valentine, did well, and it got into on TV, Mar Vista was like, you guys are golden. What else do you want to do? And we did a movie for them that got on Lifetime called All for Her. We did a movie for them called Love Always Santa, which I don't know if you can see in the back there.
No, it's blurred out. I can't.
Blurred, but that's me. That's Love Always Santa. I promise you. So we got those, and then I realized something, which is that these companies, these little companies, are just holding companies for cash. It's basically a cash flow thing, because it's not like they have a studio. They just have a check that they write and they put together the team. And I said, I can do that, right? Again, important thing, stupidly confident. I said, why can't I do that? So I spent the next couple of years approaching people with money. And then one was dumb enough to give me some. And that's when we became a production company. I formed with my partners, and we sold 2 movies to Lifetime, which emboldened more people to give us money. And we have at least 4 on the slate for this year that we're going to do, and it's been a ride. So again, I don't want to say it's a talent-free industry. It is. You have to have some level of talent, like just like music or anything else. But for every great musician that you know personally that hasn't made it, and I say made it, like isn't making a living from it. I'm not talking about like being Billie Eilish. That's somebody people like you like, right?
Yeah.
Heard of her. She's got weird fingernails. That's all I know about her. She's got big fingernails. That's it. That's all I know. But she's probably very talented. I'm just talking about like making a living in the industry. You know, there's some core competencies beyond talent that you need, and it's just the putting in the effort and being creative with the effort. You know, instead of peddling scripts to companies that were basically just funding mechanisms, I said, okay, well, how do I become a funding mechanism? And I'll do it myself, and I'll keep more of the money, and I can do this without having to pitch. I'll just write them myself. So yeah, that's how it went. With the Lifetime movies, it's been interesting because those are primarily built around scaring women. And what I found interesting, they're thrillers. It's not like I'm a crazy person. What I found interesting is that took a while to get out of a male mindset of what's scary, and sort of the idea of, every script I wrote for Lifetime, at some point the man came in to solve the problem, and somebody had to sit me down and eventually go, that's not what we like here. That's what men want to have happen, but that's not what happens here. So I had to sort of reorient myself to think of things that scare the women that watch Lifetime. And a lot of times it's just sort of the invasion of the home. And I don't mean like, people breaking into the house, but sort of the disruption of a family unit goes a long way to scaring them. Now, by the way, I know that we're talking about very heteronormative, kind of like basic, stereotypical stuff about women, but that's the market that I have to write to. One day I'd like to try to do something a little different. The last one I did a movie called Psycho Yoga Instructor. It's about a woman who gets a yoga instructor who's super duper hot. We had to put out an abs call. I did not know this, but you pay extra for guys who have abs. Because they got to take their shirt off in the movie, and there's good-looking guys who are soft boys with an I think they're called. They're soft boys that don't have abs, and they don't cost as much as guys with abs. But we wanted this guy to be pretty jacked, so we paid extra. We put out an abs call, and they have sort of a romance, but he's insane, and of course, he becomes very possessive and wants to control her, and things go south from there. The other one was Psycho Storm Chaser. It's about a stay-at-home nurse who stays behind to take care of a coma patient during a hurricane. And the serial killer, who's also a storm chaser, shows up. Because I was thinking, what's the best way to kill somebody, Sophia? Do it during a hurricane. No one will know that you did it. They'll think the hurricane did it. So he meets up with this woman, and she's trying to keep the coma patient alive and herself as well. So those are the last two that I did, and I can't tell you the ones coming up, but they're good. They're all in the same vein. And by the way, that nod is exactly what people do when you go, I got a movie called Psycho Storm Chaser and it's good. People go, yeah, no, good.
No, but they're actually very well done. Like, I've seen clips of them and they're really well done. Did you ever think you were gonna write for Hallmark and Lifetime? Like, those are kind of have like the stigma around it that it's super cringy or like cheesy, Like, did you ever think you were gonna write for them?
I didn't. I thought I would be a comedy writer, because that's where my my job is being a stand-up.
Yeah.
But it's this weird thing of like you fall into it, and what I have found is that it's all sort of like, have you studied sonnets in English class?
Not really. A little bit.
So the thing about a sonnet is it's just like a haiku. There's a formula to a sonnet, right? There's in a Shakespearean sonnet it's 12, but in an Italianate sonnet it's 8. There's 8 lines where it kind of sets you up as to what's going to happen. Then there's a volta where there's a twist, and then it changes the meaning of the poem. So it's basically like a setup and punchline, right? And the Shakespearean sonnet, just as a side note, was an innovation because he took 12 lines to get there instead of 8. So he made you wait longer, the suspense built. But that's just a side note.
And this is the English teacher coming out of you, right?
This is the English teacher coming out of you. But I have a point. And the point is this, that when that's essentially like a meme, which is there is a set of rules that govern how the poem work. They're just like there's a set of rules on what governs how a meme works. You know, like we know what the meme's about, and we have the top text and the bottom text, and we know what's going to happen with that. But over time, creative people can evolve it by sort of playing on the expectations of those memes or those poems or those cheesy movies. And one of the things that I like to do is sort of, you know, the goal of making a movie that's saleable to Lifetime or to Hallmark, but at the same time is interesting to me as, you know, a 45-year-old dude. Like, can I do that? And there's a certain challenge there of making it cheesy, but also kind of knowingly cheesy and not bad because it can't be anything other than bad, but being a little off kilter because we know it needs to be off kilter, but playing with the tropes of the medium, which I try to do. Doesn't always work, but sometimes it does.
That's really interesting. And it's great that you were an English teacher because you could bring you can bring a lecture into your explanation.
If I were still teaching, I would be I would only be doing a segment on memes because I find them to be very interesting. And the same thing that happens with poetry happens with memes, which is you start to expect something, you know, and then what happens is if everyone knows what's coming, you can play on that expectation by changing it. And then the meaning of the meme shifts, and it just happens so quickly with memes. You know, it moved a little slower in the 17th and 16th century, but you know, you get the point.
Yeah.
You know, because like when we're stand up, there's a concentrated energy to stand up where you're in front of strangers and you're telling jokes, and a lot of times they're jokes that you've written, but a lot of times they're just jokes you think of on the spot. And sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. And I'll be honest with you, you get addicted to that. That is like a drug shot directly into the pleasure centers of your brain, you know, because it's the same thing I imagine like what a skydiver feels, which is, this is really scary and I hope I don't crash into the ground. Writing does not have that same kind of feel. It's more kind of bashing my head against the wall. You know, I just set up a desk in here because I have 2 or 3 scripts to write over the course of the next month. And I usually try to write downstairs in the family room so I can be around the kids, but I got to, you know, woodshed, as a musician would call it. I got to shut the door and spend 3-4 hours a day in here just thinking of stuff. And that's torturous. It's torturous. Everybody says, do writers like to write? No, writers like to have written. We like to have it done. The actual process of it is terrible. But when you're on set and you're working real hard and you're fixing problems, that's pretty awesome. And one of those things is like, how to identify with this character? What's the story actually about? We talk about want and need. Every character wants something, but they can't get what they want till they get what they need first. And a lot of times they don't know what they need. So this woman wanted to be in a relationship, and but she couldn't do that until she did what she needed to do, which is get over her dead husband. And I just remember being in the hotel and we both realized it. And it was like, oh, and like it just like was a tumbler and a lock clicking into place, and you're like, everything else just sort of flowed from that. And we wrote like a new third act in a night, and that was what was filmed. And you know, you can go watch Level We Santa on YouTube. It's technically illegal to do that, but I don't get extra money if you watch it on Hallmark, so just watch it on YouTube. And when you see the last act, and that scene, there's a scene where she's talking to her daughter through a bedroom door. That was written the night before shooting started, and I'm very proud of that.
Wow, that's great. And just to cycle back to comedy, like what are some specific stories that you had from one of your best shows, or like a memorable experience that you had?
So a couple of things that are fun is I've gotten to travel over to Europe to perform for the troops, which was super cool. I got to go to a lot of perform for them while they were recovering during the Afghan and the Iraqi wars. So I got to help them. That was just nice because like a lot of times you like, and again, I'm just making fart noises, you know, like, I'm a goof. And sometimes it feels like being a goof is, it's ephemeral. It's here and it's gone, and it's fun, but it doesn't have any like longer meaning than that. But getting to perform for the troops and these people who were looking to get their minds off the fact that they were, recovering from sometimes pretty severe damage, that felt pretty good. Like, that I was able to actually help, which was nice. I get a call from the president of the class, and I hadn't talked to her in 20 years, So she goes, "Hey, you are you coming to the reunion?" And I was like, "No, of course not. Why would I do that? That's dumb." And they're like, "Well, we were kind of hoping, ticket sales have been bad, and we were hoping that if you hold on one second. Hello, Annabelle. That's my other daughter. Annabelle, come up and be on a podcast." She's very funny, Annabelle. Well, you can just say hello. Hold on one second. I'll finish the story in a second. This is my little Annabelle. This is Sophia, the girl that is the high school student that I did the podcast with. This is Annabelle. Oh, here, moving closer. Her name, no, closer, right there. Her name's Annabelle. I call her Anna Smell. Nobody thinks it's funny but me. Okay, go in with your sister. I'll be there in a second. She doesn't know she's adopted. No, I'm only joking. She's not adopted. The president of class calls me and goes, "Hey, the tickets are selling poorly, and we were hoping maybe if you came, we could advertise that you were going to do comedy, and then more people would come." And I was like, "Okay, well, I'm booked, so I can't do that. But I just would like you to repeat this so I understand. Are you saying more people would come to a high school party because I was there?" And she was like, "Yes, I guess technically that's what I'm saying." And I'm like, "Ooh, could you say it one more time so maybe it'll go back through time and I'll hear that as a 16-year-old sitting by myself in my house, and then I'll feel better." And I go, "Okay, well, this is pretty terrible now, but it'll get better in 20 years. And she said no. But it was pretty cool. That was like a cool moment of, because for me, and I know I'm talking a lot, but one of the things about being a weirdo is you're always trying to check to see what's going on in your head is similar to what's going on in other people's heads. And, for me, laughter is the best way to know that my thought wasn't stupid. You know what I mean? Like sometimes I have a thought and I go, that's a weird thought. People don't have that thought. And I'll say it out loud. And if people laugh, I know I've bypassed all the sort of little homunculi that sit in their head to tell them that's stupid. Don't think about that. And if they laugh, it means we're at least on some similar playing field. And that makes me feel good, to all my fellow weirdos out there. It feels good to know you're not completely weird. You're not completely on your own island. So the idea that I could make these people laugh, especially the high school kids, that was pretty fun. But I didn't do it. I was booked. Sophia, I can't give up a booking to go be funny for those people. Maybe at the 40th. 40. If you're watching high school president from class of 94 in Cherokee High School, maybe for the 40th. Would it be funny if
hard to get?
Yeah, that's right. I'm playing hard to get. Maybe call me. I don't know.
Yeah. You're too famous for that.
The same hard to get. Maybe.
And also about the talking thing, I feel like the point of interviews, like I want to hear your story. You're not talking too much. Oh, and also you worked with Kevin Nealon, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's a super cool guy.
Yeah, what was your experience working with him?
So he's a guy that he saw me perform in Cleveland. I shouldn't brag, but I was in Cleveland, and he said, "You're really funny. You should come perform with me." And you hear that a lot from like famous people. Yeah. If you don't know Kevin Nealon, he was on Saturday Night Live. He was one of Hans and Franz, and super cool guy. But that Monday he called me and said, "All right, let's do dates." And I'm like, no one ever follows through. You hear it, and he's the first guy to follow through. He performed the first night at Vinny's Comedy Club, the Stress Factory, and I was opening for him. It was my first night opening for him, and it was home crowd, New Jersey people. I was amped up. I got a standing ovation in the as an opener, and this does not happen. This is not a regular occurrence for me. And I was like, oh no, I'm scared now because I'll get fired. Because a lot of big time stars, they want bad comedians to open for them. They're very insecure people. I mean, like literally in their contract, it'll say things like, don't get me a good opener because, I just want 20 minutes of them being terrible so I look better. So I'm like, well, how do I do this? Because you can't come off and apologize for getting a standing ovation without sounding like you're humble bragging. Like you can't come off and go, I'm sorry, I'm so wonderful. You have to say it in such a way that it doesn't look that way. So I was thinking about it and I was like, well, I know what I'll do. And in between shows, I said, Kevin, I'm going to be less energetic in the second show. And I'm in my head, I'm like, okay, so now he'll know, like I won't be as good. Yeah. And now he'll let me continue to work for him. And he goes, oh, no, Jay, please, I want you to be as funny as you can. I hired you because I like good stand-up and I want you to be funny. And so don't lay down. And also, I'm very famous. They'll forget about you the second I step on stage. And I was like, that's alpha, that's and it really was true. He would get up there and it would be like, Kevin Nealon, and people wouldn't remember me. But it went a long way to kind of teaching me, like, don't be afraid of what goes on before you, just try to enjoy the wave of good comedy and enjoy the experience of it rather than being nervous. So you're a good guy, Kevin Nealon.
Yeah, that's great.
If you're watching Kevin, I don't know. It'd be interesting if he was just checking high school video blogs, just what's going on? Oh, Jay.
And is there anything coming up that you want to plug that you're working on?
Just my Twitter. I have a movie coming out. You'll see it on Lifetime or whatever. Don't worry about any of that. But if you're on Twitter, follow me on Twitter. Is anybody your age on Twitter?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter.
Are you?
I mean, it's not the
most...
me, Well, I will right after this.
You better. Jay Black is funny. JayBlackIsfunny. I don't know. My wife keeps telling me no one's on Twitter who's under 40.
It's not the primary social media. That's like Snapchat, maybe Instagram, but Twitter's.
Yeah, I try to avoid having people see me. I feel like I'm much more popular if you can't see me. If you can only hear my jokes, it's a lot better. So yeah, check me out on Twitter and follow me there. You high school kids, find me on Twitter. Ask your parents what Twitter is and then get an account and follow me.
You should make an Instagram too.
Yeah, but I don't think visually like that. It's not, I'm not, I like just making little jokes. I feel like if I were to do an Instagram, I'd have to take a picture of my dog and then make my dog make the joke. I'm not good at that. Follow me on Twitter and I'll convince me to be on Instagram on Twitter. Maybe I'll think about it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's all the questions I have. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you for having me. This was a lot of fun.